All right, you guys, thank you for tuning in. You're here with Enrico from DSM. You got Darren from DSM as well. And we're joined by two very special guests, our friend Patrick and Megan from 3EPR. They are a PR powerhouse right here in New Jersey and folks that we are proud to call our friends. So
Wow,
thank you guys for joining us
powerhouse.
today.
A powerhouse.
Powerhouse. We only
Thank you.
deal with powerhouse type people. Thank you guys for jumping on.
Sure. Just don't set that bar too high for us, Dan. It's okay. We can reach it.
Guys, you guys are an impressive group. So for those who don't know, Patrick, Megan, can you guys introduce yourselves in 3E? Tell folks what you guys do.
Absolutely. Thanks for the opportunity. Good to talk to you all. In brief, 3E Public Relations is a full-service public relations company with a special core competency or a particular core competency in media relations from all aspects of what that definition is. That means we prepare key message points for our clients that will differentiate them from their competitors. We also conduct media training for their spokespeople to make sure that they're prepared and shine in every interview opportunity, but also allows them to convey those message points in any setting. Most importantly, I think our team is really, really good at targeting the right media, whether it's B2B or consumer, so that we're hitting our clients' target audiences with a laser focus. Over the past couple of years, as we've all seen, that focus has kind of taken on a new look, and that is a lot of the media properties we are going after now have high domain authorities. We're looking at sites that have domain authorities in the 80s and 90s, because what that does is it will help our clients with their SEO programs as well.
Mm-hmm.
Just to tack on to that a little, Patrick focused on kind of the service areas that we specialize in, but we do have certain verticals that we represent, although we have clients in all fields. Historically, we've really focused on food, healthcare, tech, and franchise. And I think that's important for two main reasons. Having those specialties in certain areas allows us to, number one, know the media that we're going after and have them know us too. And number two, because of that, we really understand the unique challenges and opportunities that our clients face in those areas. So it allows us to be a true extension of their team. They don't have to educate us on their industry and what's happening. We already know that.
Yep. Love it. Well, thank you guys for jumping on again. So today we're going to talk about what a lot of businesses have been seeing over the last couple months. We're kind of right now on the tail end of this coronavirus stuff. New Jersey is getting into, I think, phase 2 of reopening. And so we had talked a few weeks ago, the four of us, about what do businesses need to hear right now. And I don't think it's a reopening message, but what we've heard from a lot of businesses is this: I wish I could go back to early March, right, and do my messaging differently, do it better, do it faster. And I think this was a huge learning moment for a lot of businesses where they came out of it and said, in hindsight, I wish we were more responsive. I wish we were quicker. I wish we were ready. And so what we're going to talk about here, the four of us, is how can New Jersey businesses be better prepared so that, God forbid, we don't have another pandemic like this. But the next time an opportunity presents itself, right, how can you best take advantage of it? Because so many business owners are kicking themselves right now saying, I wish we had done it better. I wish we would have done it a little bit differently and faster. And so that's what we want to talk to you guys about today, is helping business owners understand how to be quick, how to take advantage of that opportunity when it presents itself. So we put together a few questions we'll discuss. From your guys' perspective, 3E, where do most companies need to improve in order to be an industry leader in these kind of moments?
I think the first step, Dan, is really to, as you said, many companies don't have a plan. Many of our clients don't have crisis plans in place, and they are forced to kind of put it together in the eye of the storm, or in the middle of the storm, so to speak. Our advice to all of our clients is, let's put together a crisis plan when we first engage with you, so that we have something in place, so that, God forbid, when basically the inevitable happens, whether it's on a scale of 1 to 10 or a 1 or a 10, we at least have a plan in place, and we know protocols and processes that we can rely on out of the gate. And then we practice it with them. It's kind of like spring cleaning and fall cleaning, right? You want to be able to do it a couple of times a year so that you're comfortable. It becomes almost instinctive for you. With that plan comes the designation of spokespeople. That's very important. Who are our spokespeople going to be? What are they going to say? What are their areas of specialty? And then you want to media train them. I mentioned that as one of our specialties at the beginning. You want to make sure that what they say and how they come across is natural, not that it's scripted, but it's something that is coming second nature to them. That will allow our clients and brands to react quickly. It's very important in times of crisis that you get ahead of as much as you can. When a crisis hits, you really can't get ahead of everything, but you certainly can get ahead of a lot. And the quickness of response adds to the integrity of the response as well. So having this plan in place, having the people ready to go, they are set to have a quick reaction, whether it's broadcast, but in today's day and age also, as we all know, having a quick response for social media is just as important.
Yeah, I think, Patrick, you hit a good point there when it comes to social media, and we've seen it with COVID and recent happenings too. Brands have realized that they need to be on social, but I don't think they often think of those platforms as a tool to communicate and educate both their internal and external audiences. Especially even if they have a PR program in place, they automatically think of media relations. But during this time, with our clients, we're really evaluating, do you have a message that's appropriate for media, given the sensitivities? And if not, then we're using social media and content, which I'm sure your team at DSM is doing too, from a content perspective, in terms of how do we communicate with our audiences. And I think it's important with that, Patrick kind of alluded to it a little bit too earlier on, that's why it's important to have a trusted PR partner. So, you're having somebody already behind you, they can evaluate really quickly, do you have a message that makes sense for media? Do you have a message that makes sense for social? We can't really lose time when this stuff happens. So we need to understand your businesses and the sensitivity and the nuances so that you can hit the ground running. I think that partner also, they have a sense of where you're willing to take a risk and where you're not, which is another point I would make in terms of how companies can improve. You need to be a little ready to get out of your comfort zone. If we look at the companies that really stood out during COVID in terms of their response, they're not the ones that were quiet or played it safe. They kind of broke out of what their usual was to really help their audiences and their employees. And then the last point I would make related to improving is, you said it before, Dan, there's no greater learning experience than this, right? So let's take a look at where you were strong and where you were weak during COVID, and make sure you're ready for the future. I don't think you could really anticipate something hitting as hard as this did. So use this as an opportunity to evaluate where you weren't the greatest, where you were, and what you could change going forward.
Yeah.
One of the things real quick that I wanted to play upon, because I think we've seen it the most, and it's one of the core tenets that when we're working with a client, we say, you've hired us to do our job, go do your job and focus there. And one of the biggest things that we've seen, that education process for our clients, and I'm wondering from your guys' perspective as well, we always have to fight with the client at the beginning to be like, why do we need you? And now they needed us, and it's one of those things where it's like a good insurance policy. Like, nobody wants to pay for it until you actually need it. And then when you're there, one of the things that I've heard from almost across the board with every one of our clients is, I'm so happy we had you guys, because it was one less thing for us to worry about. And I'm wondering if you guys are seeing the same thing on your side, where it's like, oh my gosh, like, we had to pay for that insurance policy and it sucked that we had to do it, but we're so happy that it was there when we needed it, because we happened to be, we could actually, in a time of true crisis, which I think, I don't care what business you're in, the last 3 months for a lot of people, because it was so unexpected and unprecedented, was a true crisis. They were like, it helped us focus on our business, and you guys, and we knew you guys were handling what you needed to do. And it was like, we got out of your way. And I'm wondering if you guys saw that too.
Yeah, we did. It's funny, a similar conversation. I had one of our healthcare clients. So obviously they're in the front lines of it. And we've been working with them for, I don't even know, about 20 years or so. We were on a call with them a couple weeks ago where we're starting to plan for reopening. And the marketing director said, listen, I just want to pause and take a moment and say thank you, because you guys, I couldn't have had a better partner by my side through this. And I wouldn't have been able to get done what I needed to get done had it not been for you guys. So similar conversations. I think on the flip side of that, we've had people reach out to us that we've never worked with before, saying, listen, I found you online. I see you have a specialty in this. I need you immediately, because this happened. And so they're not in that position to get out there quickly. They don't have that partner. They're in a scramble instead. So it is nice seeing kind of the two sides where it's been helpful and where people are struggling because they don't have somebody, to help them with it when the time comes.
Yep. Agreed.
So one of the things we talked about is speed, agility and nimbleness and getting messaging out. But when you have a moment like this, whether it's, COVID-19 or any other type of crisis, it tends to come with high stakes, right? There's a lot at stake for businesses, whether they put something out, whether they don't. How do you guys, and Darren, even as a business owner, how do you communicate to clients that, listen, yeah, there's a lot at stake, and I'm sure you want it to be well vetted and you want to bring everybody to the table and think it through, but also we need something out in an hour, right? How do you kind of balance that with clients where, yeah, let's think it through, but also we need to move now?
It is a situation, Dan, that happens whether it's a crisis or in day-to-day opportunities with the media. Whenever you're dealing with media, they're on deadlines. And it is an education process for some clients that they have to understand and learn that we need to be responsive. And I think COVID is obviously a very unique example, because for some brands and companies and even industries, it created an opportunity, right? I mean, we're all on a Zoom call. I think Zoom is one of the beneficiaries, if you want to use that word, for such a pandemic. However, there's also other times when you just need the proper response, and response comes with speed. And we talked about a little bit earlier when we were saying you need to have a plan in place. The other thing to understand when you're dealing with media is they're reaching out to more than just one company or more than one PR agency. We have very good relationships with a lot of media in, as Megan said, our core competencies and core markets. The quicker we can get a response to the editor, the better it is for our client, for a couple of reasons. One is the client then becomes, or the client has the opportunity to help craft that narrative that the story is going to be. A lot of times the media outlets have an idea, but they're going to the experts to say, what specific points do we want to make with this story, whether it's broadcast, electronic, or print. Being the first ones out of the gate, being the first ones to contact the media gives you that opportunity to help craft that story, gives you the opportunity to kind of be the preeminent expert in that particular feature. It's either going to be you or your competition. Someone's going to have it. You might as well respond quickly and make sure it's you. Again, that's where the media training and all of those things come into play. The other thing you want to make sure of is by crafting that story, you're being able to push your messaging across. The most important thing, though, is that it has long-term benefits. We always talk about our clients. This is one opportunity. If we capitalize this and do it well, we're considered a thought leader for this particular subject matter. So when that reporter or that media outlet wants to do something else, they want to do a follow-up, we become the trusted ally. We become the person they reach out to first because we responded really well. The other agency or the other client that responds at the 11th hour, not only do you get a little piece at the end of the article or the feature, you're really not relying on moving forward. So we really implore our clients, these are the benefits of responding quickly, both short-term and long-term.
Well, so one of the biggest things you guys talked about is creating a plan. And DSM, we've done our own planning, and everybody, again, has learned a lot. Coronavirus is unique, but how do you guys plan for something that you can't foresee, right? Like nobody in January, February planned for something like this or could have even imagined in a hypothetical something like this. So are there kind of broad categories of things, like you mentioned, having a designated spokesperson ready to go? What are some of those things you plan for without knowing what you're planning for?
Good question. Yeah. There's definitely areas of planning you can do, and approaches we typically take with our clients. Like Patrick said earlier, that's usually first out of the gate what we do with clients. Take a look at what all the possibilities are. So usually we start with establishing an escalation protocol, which really just outlines, okay, say situation happens, what are the steps that need to be taken? What's the flow of that path, and who needs to be responsible for each, and within what time frame do they need to be responsible for it? It's one thing to designate, your CEO is going to be the person who answers media calls. Okay, but he can't call them back in 3 hours. So, how much time are you going to give people to take action on their various responsibilities within the protocol? And then within that too, at what point in time do certain people within the organization need to get involved? So if it's a case that involves sexual harassment, for example, you're probably going to need your legal counsel involved. Whereas if it's something like COVID, you might not. So just kind of outlining the various different responsibilities within the organization and who is designated to do what. That way, when something happens, it isn't the panic of who should I call and who's going to help me. You kind of know your path, and that doesn't have to be. You don't need to know the situation, right? You're just outlining, what's the steps you're going to be taking. The next one, which to me is more of a lesson from COVID, I think we might not have necessarily done this beforehand, but would be to anticipate and kind of pre-write some responses and statements. There are definitely some circumstances you can predict the likelihood of your organization experiencing at some point in time. So rather than, normally I think we would approach that as, okay, here's a circumstance that happened. We know your organization. This is the response that you need. Let's draw it up. We've learned that things need to happen a lot faster during COVID. So pre-write some of those messages, have them approved by legal counsel. That way, all you have to do is make some tweaks here and there in order to get them out. So actually doing that writing ahead of time. And then I can't, we've said this before, but I can't hammer home enough the importance of media training your spokespeople. We've done media training with, everybody up to C-suite level, who oftentimes, off camera says, I'm comfortable, I know the message, I've got it, I know my organization. And then when they get on camera, they're a very different person, either through body language or, the way they deliver their messaging, or most importantly, in a circumstance like this, a difficult time usually equals difficult questions. So how do you respond to that when media is throwing it on your face in camera? Often on live TV. So it's important to designate who those spokespeople are going to be, and regardless of what level they're at, make sure that they're comfortable in front of the camera. And then the last thing I would say is conduct some training, like have this pretend basically a mock situation that this occurs, and make sure your people know what their roles are and that they can deliver on them. It's one thing to see on paper, I'm responsible for writing the press release. It's another to actually, test it out and try it.
To be on a fly on the wall of some of the things that you guys have probably seen over the years. Like, yeah, I got it. And then you get on camera and you're like, oh my gosh, what are you doing, dude?
There have been more than one occasion, unfortunately, Daniel, where we're behind the scenes in the green room saying, "Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God."
Yeah.
So,
No, that important.
Obviously, what are you gonna do?
It is, and to Megan's point, that last point, a lot of what's going on right now, like I've had over the course of the last 3 months, a few people reach out to me, friends, and not like any big, media or anything like that, but just reach out. And you guys have known me now long enough that, like, I tell it the way it is. Like, that's just the way it's going to be. But I've had to kind of meter my response a little bit to, okay, before the brain hits the mouth to filter that in a way that kind of like, all right, let's be respectful, because everybody's got an opinion in today's world. It's, it's really difficult to put it out there, but I think there's also a way to be respectful and do it in a way that you know you can still be respectful and honor the cause of whatever you're speaking to without being a jerk. So I think that's important too.
Yeah, and I think Megan brought up a really good point about there are a lot of people who are good at media and interviews, but when we do the mock interview, we always start a media training with a mock interview right off the bat, first thing we do. And even people who believe they're good and or are pretty good, they invariably, 90% of them will have some kind of twitch or some kind of, they'll start their sentences with "so" all the time, or every answer starts with a certain word. They'll have a certain, twitch with their arm every time they move or something like that. And part of the media training is to smooth all of that out. Even if it's just one or two wrinkles, it's about smoothing all of those things out. And it's funny because I always watch these interviews. It's doing it for 30 years now. I watch these interviews and I'll sit and I'll be with my family who know nothing about public relations other than what I tell them, right? And they're like, and I'll sit there. Sometimes I say, wow, that person had really good media training. Or conversely, wow, that person needs a lot of work. And my family and friends are like, what are you talking about? Well, I mean, which person, do you think that person was a good interview? Oh yeah, they knew what they were talking about, versus, I don't know about that person. So it's really a science that can be lost on a lot of regular people, for lack of a better, someone outside of the industry. But for people who do it every day, like Megan and myself, every interview I watch, I can tell how well they've been media trained. Every single one. It's amazing.
Wow, I bet your friends and family, they're like, no, we thought that guy was great. You're like, nah.
No. I mean, what the hell? Well, never mind. We'll edit that part.
Yeah.
So Darren, to your point, my next question is about building trust and building relationships. I think you've identified as one of your most important jobs at DSM, Darren, is building relationships. So to get the trust of a client, where they, you bring to them, here's the suggestion, here's the plan, to get them to kind of turn to yes, green light, go, you have to have established trust. So what are some ways that you establish trust so that when it comes to this crisis moment, they're like, yes, go? How do you build that relationship?
I think there's really two ways to do it. One is, and Megan brought up the examples a couple of minutes ago. When you have an existing client, that trust is built over years and years of delivering on the results. The healthcare client that Megan referenced, as she said, we've been working with for close to 20 years now. And COVID-19 created an opportunity, as we mentioned earlier, and our team was able to get them not just on New Jersey media, but Metro New York, on national media. They became really a go-to resource. And those are things that we've been doing for this particular client for years. So it wasn't necessarily surprising, even though it's always a challenge, it wasn't necessarily surprising to this client. So we had proof, direct proof and direct equity built with this particular client. But then you have other clients, like, again, as Megan said, who are calling us and saying, hey, I got to get out there right now. We're about to ramp up again. We haven't done this before. And those people are coming to us because we have experience, not just in getting media placements in New York, New Jersey, and regional and national, but also we have experience in those areas that Megan mentioned early on. We have healthcare, finance, franchise, tech. We know those industries, we know those media outlets, so we can call and email and we'll get responses. I think that's really a big thing for us. So you're looking for that experience. The final thing is to be transparent, especially when you're working with a new client or someone that's calling us and saying, hey, this is what I want to do. You have to be honest and upfront and kind of manage expectations. One of the things with crisis communications in particular is you can't take a negative and make it a positive overnight. You need to have steps. First goal is to take that negative and make it a neutral. And then we will focus on taking that neutral, and over time, a good amount of time, we will focus on making it a positive. But understanding that clients need to know that is a big thing. Understanding that these are the things that we have to address. A lot of clients in a crisis don't want to address some of the facts that need to be addressed. And when you have those meetings early on and you have those appointments and you say, this is what we need to do, they need to buy into that, and therefore down the road you won't have people being upset and you won't have expectations not being met, because that's going to be critical.
That's that point about what you said, building that trust up, being authentic, and especially not wanting to talk to like that negative. Like, bro, if you're going to turn it around, you got to head it off at the pass. Like, there's no getting to the positive unless you deal with the negative head on, and like, let's deal with it. Let's mitigate it. Let's put it out there. Let's show you have a position on it, and then go from there. Cause I agree with you. Without that, like if you have a client that's not willing um, to deal with the hard things, it's never going to turn to have that positive, and to be able to run with that going forward. Like people that don't want to deal with things, it just doesn't work. It's on the ad side too.
Yeah.
It's across the board. So that point is dead on, 100%, completely agree.
Cool. Let me jump to our last question. So how does having an ongoing public relations program better position a company to capitalize on media and messaging opportunities, or to like get ahead of a crisis situation?
I think it's really that the best answer is kind of summed up in all of our previous answers. You know, you want to have a PR program in place. The first time a brand wants to have a relationship with a media outlet should not be during a crisis. It's not going to go well, plain and simple. You know, you need to build up equity. You need to have a relationship with media. You need to have a relationship with a PR firm that knows you, that knows your brand as well as you do, so that they can collaborate with you on that message in time of crisis, as well as developing a program that's going to be beneficial for you long-term and short-term. Having a PR program in place and then having a crisis hit, you've built up a lot of equity with your consumers, with your media. You have a lot of editorial placements and stories that people have watched, listened, or read. So they have a positive viewpoint. Once you have a crisis, that positive viewpoint may take a hit. It will take a hit, but it's still there and it can be built again. But if you're coming out of the box the first time and people's perception of you, I'd never heard of this brand before, and now all of a sudden I have this negative feeling about them, you're really starting behind, really behind. And you need to have that program in place so that you're not in that position at any point in time, to the best of your ability.
Yeah, you guys have definitely hit a lot of points, and it's one of the reasons why we enjoy working with you guys so much, is that it's so parallel to. It doesn't matter if it's marketing, advertising, PR. It all goes hand in hand. And that point you just made, Patrick, about being ahead of it, like you don't want that first message out there to be negative. There's so many companies in the history of the world. No company is bereft of blemishes. Like everybody has them. It happens. Like just like being human, everybody has those obstacles that they need to overcome. That being said, the relationships that you guys have, the relationships that you guys have built up over time, play in the same way we do. Going to the media, even on the advertising side, there are things that being in business for 13 years, I'm able to call on people. Like people know who we are, what we do. There's also, it's really, really important to not only play on that you don't want to be on the client side and be behind the eight ball, but you don't want to be on the agency side and be always asking for things. Like be there and be available to people when they need you. I've never known anybody at a magazine, at a television station, at a digital, vertical, place that we work with, that when they call, you make yourself available and you help when you can. A lot of times it doesn't cost you anything except a few minutes of your time, but that that is so important, beyond being a good negotiator, beyond, that relationship, that core relationship, fundamental part of it, whether you're on our side of the coin or on your guys' side of the coin, that's something that's, oops, sorry, that's something that's never going to go away. And that's why it's actually funny. That call was actually from one of my buddies who runs a magazine in New Jersey. He must be.
I was gonna say, what if it's somebody who needs you? You have to be there.
I know, but I'm here right now. I'm going to text him on the side in a few minutes and tell him I'd see what's up. But that core relationship thing, that piece is so important to having, just a good working relationship, because one hand usually washes the other in our game. And New Jersey, especially, I know you guys sort of, your bandwidth is a little bit bigger than ours in terms of expanse and clients who you work with. But you know what? Like, that relationship, it matters. It matters a lot. And people know who the people are that help, and people know the people are that don't always help. And that usually helps be that first phone call that people are coming to, looking for your guidance or looking for a suggestion. Or, I can't tell you over the course of the years that I've worked how many times somebody's reached out to me and been like, yo, give me an idea on a story. I'm like, oh, that's what you get paid for. Like, are you kidding me right now? You want me to do it? But those are the types of things that usually go a long way. And those relationships, in a lot of cases, turn into like real friendships that are, are people that call you just out of, or send you something when you have a kid, or, or send you a card when you get married, or, whatever. So
You're 100% right, Dan. I think it's more so today than it's ever been, and I think will continue to be, because you have all these media outlets that are cutting back on their editorial staffs. So they have fewer people who are required to do more work, and they're looking for people who they can rely on, that can deliver things to them in a timely fashion. There's a stat that I like to use that came out about 6-8 months ago, that for every journalist now, there are 6 PR pros. So just give that a moment or two to marinate. So you have an editor who's getting basically bombarded by PR people, right? This is just the reality of the situation. So if you don't have those relationships in place already, and you don't have the ability to give them what they want and view it as a collaboration, then you're going to have a hard time getting media placements. And to your point, that's what's going to build relationships. And that's when they start reaching out to you, because they don't want to hear from everybody else. They know that they can count on you to deliver what they need done, and in an impartial manner. That's the other thing about being transparent with clients, is that they have to understand the difference between public relations / editorial and advertising. That sometimes you're not going to be able to just see everything before it goes on air or is posted. You're not going to be able to put your tagline in every quote that you want. It has to be something where you have to understand the editor's perspective and what he or she has to do as part of their job. One of the things that an editor told me years ago, more than one editor actually, is the one thing that really upsets me is when I get a phone call from a PR person, and it's obvious they have no idea what I write about, what I broadcast, what I air, and they're just calling me out of the blue. It's like, do your homework. And that's something that I've lived with, and our whole staff at 3EPR lives with. Before we contact one single media outlet or one single reporter, we know what that person's been writing about for the past 3 or 4 months. It's our job. It's what we have to do. And you would be shocked about how appreciative they are, because it happens too infrequently. So I may have given away our secret sauce. I probably shouldn't have done that. But it is just true. You have to understand that these people have a job, and you're trying to help them do their job better. Once you do that, you can have success.
yeah, but the secret sauce about what you just said, there's a lot of people who will listen to the secret sauce, but they'll never actually put it into action. And that's the difference between a good a good marketing agency, a good PR agency, whatever it is. That's the difference. There's teams that can hear you say that, they'll process it, and they'll be like, whatever, we're just going to keep doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
I hear you, and I'm 100% on board. What'd you say?
was like, you guys have been doing it for years, so that's built up. Like you said before, you've built up a reputation with media outlets where, like, when Patrick comes to me or Megan comes to me, it's like, yeah, they've done their homework and they're, like you said, you're trusted. You've built up over time that relationship by using that secret sauce. So
Yep.
even if somebody were to kick it into gear tomorrow, it's not the same as, having it as a tried and true practice that you guys have built your name on. So.
Yep.
But
It's
if
also
you
kind
want,
of
just bleep out that whole section if you feel like it's too proprietary.
No. I think it's important to say. Look, I think Megan and I are on the same page about virtually everything. I think if we as an agent, as not just an agency, but as an industry could do a better job of stuff like that, it makes everybody better. We the first time you call a media outlet, first time you talk to a reporter and they think they find out you're from a PR agency, I can see the eyes roll. I don't have to be on a video con. I can just see it, so it's something that we all as an industry have to improve.
There's literally blogs and forums that exist out there where journalists are sharing, this is the terrible, horrible pitch I received from a PR person today. Can you believe that? I would like to never have to read one of those again because they're horrifying.
Yeah. That would be a terrible place to have your name listed.
To end up.
Wow.
On it.
Yeah, no, we had just been talking about kind of, people who tend to be risk adverse and how do you encourage them to move forward with an opportunity? How do you make them feel comfortable? And one of the things Patrick and I had been talking about in advance of this chat with you guys is that it really kind of depends. It's like a persona. So the people who are risk adverse are usually the people we experience who feel more comfortable if they have a plan in place. So we always encourage our clients, know who your leaders are and know what type of person they are. If they're the kind of people that shy away from a risk, then it's more important than ever to establish that plan and work with an agency who's been through this before. They know what they're doing. They've experienced it themselves, so that they just feel a little bit more comfortable. And we also like to tell our clients that, the difference between someone who's risk adverse and someone who's willing to take a little is kind of like the difference between people who are proactive versus reactive. And we always want our clients to be proactive and get ahead of things rather than wait until something bad hits.
Yeah, it's a great point. Yeah, like we said earlier, like there could be a lot at stake, but I don't know, the greater the risk, the greater the reward, maybe.
Yeah.
Like you kind of mentioned, Patrick, earlier, if you take the risk now, right? If you are willing to step into it and be proactive, yeah, there's this opportunity, but again, it positions you better. There's long-term benefits that come with that. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Cool. Well, Patrick, Megan, where can people find you if they want to learn more about 3E?
They can visit our website, which is very easy to remember, 3epr.com.
Nice. Awesome. All right. Thank you guys very much and look forward to talking to you guys again soon.
Thanks, Dan. Good talking to you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.